Hi, welcome to it. This is episode 5 of the Boss Moves Media Show. I cannot believe we're already at episode 5. Really, we're doing the most in making sure that we bring you the best content to just develop you and really take you to the next level. So, today, like every other day, we have an incredible speaker, somebody who's really going to empower and inspire you in your line of work, wherever you are. We really want you to break that glass ceiling today. So please, without further ado, allow me to introduce and welcome our speaker and our incredible guest for today. It's Dr. Maxine D. Wilson. Now, she has a PhD. She's a leadership and strategy scholar practitioner. She's got more than 20 years of experience, having extensive background as a strategist, a change agent, a thought leader, and an advocate. Woohoo! Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Where are you joining us live from today?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
That is awesome. How's the weather out in Atlanta, the ATL?
Not too hot today. We've been in a cold snap, but we're getting through it.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I can imagine that the whole the air and just the atmosphere is a little tense, as probably it is here in South Africa. Tell us about what's going on right now in the ATL.
Well, you have to be a little bit more cautious, like everywhere else, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So
Yeah.
the best way to navigate through it safely is to take all the precautions that is necessary to keep you and others safe. There's
Yes.
often this concern or this, I like to think of it as people not wanting to give up control, saying, I don't need a mask, I won't wear a mask. But it's not always about you. It's about the next person.
Yeah.
You have that right not to want to wear a mask,
Mm-hmm.
but I also have that right to be safe. And so we have to think about how we impact each other. And so it's been different. It's the new normal, but we're getting through it.
Yeah.
People are slowly moving back into some of their roles. Some people are going back to school, some are back at work, and we're moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I'm glad to see that you are strong and healthy, and I really hope that those around you are taking the necessary precautions. And looking at what's going on in the world around us, I've deemed it necessary, and I saw it fitting that we have a platform like this where we bring incredible people like you who find themselves working from home to really just share your knowledge and to share your institutional memory, of all the great things that you've experienced to the point where you are right now. I mean, you are an incredible and inspiring change maker. Just tell us a little bit about who you are. Who is Dr. Maxine D. Wilson?
Well, I like to, as you said, I think of myself as a strategist and a change maker. Wasn't
Yes.
always like that because, conditioning, and as you go through life, there are different stages of your journey in life that you go through. And as you're going through those journeys in life, you're still trying to find, I like to call them seasons. I figure, you go from toddler all the way up. It's different seasons in your life. And you get to that point in your life when you start to realize and contemplate the fact that you need to make some changes because now you're talking long term and that kind of stuff. And you're still a little bit, held in the past, wanting to go
Yeah.
forward, trying to navigate how to get there. My turnaround point came at the fact that, I was always supporting other people's careers. I was always making other people's dreams happen. I was the sidekick.
Yeah.
I was always the trusted sidekick, the one who would make everything for everyone else. But somewhere in that process, I was never about me. I was still tossing and trying to figure it all out. For me, I migrated here from Jamaica many, many years ago. So there's a culturation that comes because I came as an adult,
Yeah.
but there's a culturation from what you're accustomed to what you're walking into. And I got to the point of change, and I attempted to make a significant purchase in my life, a home. And after I was done with the transaction, I realized I didn't really get what I paid for. And so in the process of trying to rectify that, I learned my very first most valuable lesson. You're conditioned to believe that, they tell you that you catch or you attract more flies. But what I
Yeah.
learned that particular day was the fact was the fact that in applying the honey treatment, some people take it to believe you're asking their permission. And so when I applied that, I was basically told not going to happen. And in that instant of not going to happen, something snapped.
Mm.
It wasn't good enough for me. It was going to happen, and I was going to make it happen. And so at that point, who I was instantly shed. And now there was an instant metamorphosis that took place. I became the one that says, you know what, I'm not asking, I'm demanding. And that was the point of my turnaround, when my first lesson in applying strategy to a battle that took 14 years.
Wow. I love that. So in life, we walk through life wanting to uh, ask for permission and really do things according to the book. And that's what you're saying now, that you spent 14 years of your life really just moving out of that system and changing your mindset. What is the science behind asking for permission and asking for forgiveness?
Well, I try never to have to ask for forgiveness.
Okay.
I ask for, and I don't ask for permission.
Okay.
The thing I learned in that process is sometimes what you have to do, or mostly what you have to do, you have to be prepared. There's a certain
Mm.
preparation that have to happen. And sometimes you're in that preparation mode way too long. And something has to trigger so that you can get out of that preparation mode and start to apply what you've been preparing for. For me, I spent a lot of my young years learning how things should be done. But you see, I was looking at it through the perspective of a male. My grandfather was an active, what we would call an activist, but he was at a community level at a time when it was key to bring services and resolve issues at a community level, where you demand and receive, where you make change because you apply facts and you use strategy to do it. But in the conditioning of it all, you're taught as a female, you know, the whole conditioning of what your role are. Your gender roles have been assigned real early. For centuries, that's the way it's been. So you look and you admire a man, a male who does it, but then you feel like you know how to do it, but you feel like it's
Yes.
not your role because that's not how you've been programmed to have that role. So in that process, I had to step back and say, okay, this affects me and it affects me personally.
Mhm.
It's a dream of mine. It's everybody want to acquire that dream. And if you think about, the basic necessities in life, a roof over your head is one of them. And when
Yes.
that is threatened, it is threatened, it threatens your entire life. It threatens not just where you are currently, but it threatens your future as well, because that creates an instability.
Mm.
So in that moment, I decided that everything I ever knew that was dormant because I was female, now I'm going to reverse the roles. I'm just going to stand up to the man like a man and make my demands, which is what I did.
Who created these roles anyway, Doc?
Well, these roles have long been created, the behaviors, for as long as I know, from birth until now, I have been known, and I think it goes back centuries, of what a woman's role is. A man is the provider
Hmm.
for the family, and women are caretakers for the family and the home. And that's
But has
long been the role.
yeah. Yes. I mean, hasn't that created, absent dads because they think all they have to do is provide for the house and not take care of the children and change the diapers? Hasn't that really caused us to be where we are right now, which is
It
not a good
has,
place?
because it creates a machoism, if you will, a kind of sense
Mm.
that I bring home the bacon, and you're gonna fry it up, and you're gonna clean up, you're gonna take care of the children, and you're gonna do it all. And because I am the earner, I am the provider, I can do whatever I want, because now I'm seeing you as property. I'm not really seeing you as a person. I'm seeing you as
Mm.
your role. And that's where that problem created in the first place. And that's where that sense that, there was a time when young women were being groomed so they can get a good husband. You got
Mm.
to learn how to cook and take care of houses and do all, and that was the condition of which to do that. And for a very long time, people stay within that role. And yes, everybody have choices, and those roles are there for a reason. But I don't feel like you should dictate my role.
Yes.
I think it's a choice I should make as to the role I want, as
Yeah.
against dictating the role I should have. That's where I have that problem. Don't
S-
tell me what I should
Mm,
be and who I should
mm,
be.
mm, mm.
I'm your equal. I believe I was created equally to you.
That's very interesting because in an African context, the woman is seen as somebody, the wife in particular, is somebody who needs to be in a submissive role and really allow their husband to be at the forefront. And I want to know, firstly, is that the same thing in your cultural background as a Jamaican? And how do you then marry that with the current world, and the times that we live in today?
Well, the thing is, it's been the same way. If you think about it, and I said this recently because now I'm gonna tell my secret. I watch a lot
Yeah.
of Nollywood.
Okay.
I do.
I love
I
I
love
love
some.
Nollywood.
I love some more than
My
others.
favorite.
And I think one of the things I'm drawn to is the parallels between the culture there and a lot of the visuals, the relationship, the language. And I'm often reminded that a lot of the people who came to the Caribbean countries were brought while against their will from those same cultures. And so that culture was spread across the Caribbean as well. So there are a lot of similarities in that. And yes, if you think about it, it's a choice that we make at the end of the day, because we evolve with everything else except the equality of gender.
Yes.
We can bring change for everything.
That
We
is so
evolve
hilarious.
fast into technology. We evolve into that, but there is something about turning off or evolving beyond that inequality.
And what is that? I mean, it baffles me.
I'm not sure what it is, because I can tell you what we've evolved to, and what I've evolved to. It's about the fact that it's not about submissiveness. It's about the fact that it's a respect factor. It's respect both ways.
Yes.
That's what relationship are all about. To be subservient to someone is not a relationship. It's a
Mm.
role. It's a behavioral role. It's a fear factor. Um, for me, if I'm on the equal playing field with you, if we're at the same level, we understand our roles and responsibilities, but it doesn't mean that it's a gender specific role or responsibility.
Yeah.
It's shared roles and responsibility because it's born out of respect and an appreciation for the strength of each other in that
So
relationship.
I love that. We're about to go for a break in about a minute, but Doc, while we're on this subject and this topic on submissiveness, when you are given an opportunity to play a role, and earlier you mentioned this being a sidekick, I particularly am a co-host on a radio show, right? And I find myself having to play this role of being co-host. And when you co-host, you need to remind yourself that you're not the host.
Right.
How do you go about being in a position where you are deputy president and you play that role so well that you are comfortable in being deputy president and letting the president shine?
Well, it's about, and I've had those roles where I've had, it's like any job. You've had a job, sometimes you are hired knowing upfront what your role is going to be. You're in a
Yes.
supporting role. You're not the
Yes.
lead character, you're the supporting role. It's about communication. It's about a clear understanding at the page at which we are on, And it's about a certain degree of freedom for each person to be able to say to each other what it is they want more of, how they want to operate. It's like an agreement, whether it's verbal or otherwise, an agreement that says this is our mode of operation.
Yeah. You must always remember the modus operandi. That is very
Yes,
important.
yes.
All right. So we're going to take a break now and don't go anywhere. We'll be right back speaking to the incredible Dr. Maxine D. Wilson. We're asking your questions. So make sure you comment on all of our social media platforms at Nonalato. So we're also on bossmovesmedia.com. And hey, don't go anywhere. Coming back just now. Welcome back to it. This is the Boss Moves Media Show. It is episode 5. We have an incredible guest on the line, man, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. And it's such an honor to have her with us. Now, I know, Dr. D. Wilson, you are you're a leadership trainer, and as a leadership trainer, you focus particularly on values-based leadership. What is this exactly?
A lot of times people come in and they say, well, I'm a leader, and this is leadership. For me, leadership is about uplifting and motivating. It's not about um, typecasting people or micromanaging people. Or so in my world, I had to figure out my higher purpose.
Mhm.
And in my higher purpose, I come to the understanding that I'm an advocate for others, for those who are unable or unwilling to advocate on their own behalf.
Okay.
And that doesn't necessarily mean speaking for someone. It means motivating someone to reach their full potential. It means helping people set up goals and plans to reach that goal. Sometimes it also just simply mean um, listening to what someone have to say as they walk through their process and talk through their process.
Yes.
Um, because sometimes someone don't really need to hear you, you know, carry on their issue, but they need to work through their own issue or through their own fears or through their own whatever it is that cripple them in that moment from moving forward to the next phase of their life. And that's where I come in. I
Okay.
motivate, I
Yes.
support, I help people set goals and reach those goals. I One of my biggest passions is, in the realm of minority owned and women owned businesses who sometimes have a difficulty competing or in the great big world. And I spend a lot of time and emphasis helping people position themselves and position their business for opportunities that they would not otherwise reach for. And a lot of times they don't reach because they don't know how to. It's okay to ask, and I'm there to help.
Yes. Yes. And, that is so important right now. We are living in a time where you are a little bit shaken and shifted from your goal path. How do you get back on track? And is it a time to reevaluate your goals? Is it always a good time to reevaluate your goals? How should we navigate a time such as this?
When you're trying to navigate this path, you have to think of yourself as your brand.
Yes.
You have to think of it that way. And like any other brand, you always have a strategy to refresh and
Mm.
renew. And that comes from reevaluation. You're thrown a curveball and everything is up in chaos. And one of the things I have noticed with a lot of businesses, so let's say in the food service,
Yes.
you know, a lot of them, you go in for fine dining, you sit down, you eat. Sometimes you can barely even have takeout out of there. But when the
Yeah.
pandemic came around, the good thing that came out of it, people became innovative, creative. They start to think of
Mm.
where they had to survive. Now they're sort of thinking about, you know, uh, uh, carry out and Postmates and packaging appropriately to go up. So now things that you wouldn't have thought
Mm.
about, it's an evolution process. So you always
Yes.
have to, even when we're not in a pandemic, and this is the key aspect of it, you have to always take time to reevaluate and to adjust according to the trends, because nothing stays forever. Change is constant around you.
Yes.
And you have to, in order for you to survive, you have to be moving with those changes. You have to be responsive, not reactive to the change that is going on around you.
Yeah.
So it forces you. Sometimes there's that trigger that forces you, but on a normal, and one of the things I always talk about is, you know, reevaluating the you brand, which is you, where you are, where you want to go, and what's standing in your way, and what do you need to do. There's nothing, maybe when you started that business, everything you were doing was good at that point. Uh,
Mm.
but so much is changing. Now you have to change, you have to reevaluate where you are and make a decision where you're going to go.
Now, the whole brand topic is one that a lot of people are still fighting. I think, and that's probably because of lack of understanding what brand development and brand management and brand consciousness is all about. A lot of people still say, the whole brand thing is just so self-centered. It's, egotistical, capitalistic kind of thinking. What would you like to say about that? I mean, uh, is it important to develop a brand for yourself no matter what industry you're in?
Absolutely. If
And
you,
why is that?
it's a goal. It's a goal. It's how you want to be known.
Okay.
If you don't define yourself, then others will define you.
Yeah.
If and people will say to you, okay, that's conceited. No, it's confidence.
Okay.
It says that I know who I am. I know what I have to offer. I know how I want to be treated. This is what I'm willing to accept.
Okay.
This is how I want to be known, not how you want to cast me, but how I'm telling you who I am. And that's a part of the problem. You can't sell yourself if you don't know who you are. You can't make demands for change if you don't know what you're demanding. That's part of the biggest myth that people try. And it's partially because, again, there's a conditioning where if you're a woman and you're, especially a woman of color, you're quickly stereotyped. If you're
Yeah.
passionate about something and you go with passion, what you're always told is, oh, you're loud, you're confrontational, and they're quick to give you labels. And
Hmm.
so you have to anticipate what they have coming, so you can block it they even get to you.
But then
Knowing,
how do you do that without coming across as the angry black woman?
well, at some point you have to ask yourself again, are you allowing someone to define you,
Yeah.
or are you defining yourself? A lot of people put up these things to discourage you, to cut you off at the path, and then to say, see, that's why you didn't get that, because whatever.
Hmm.
When I don't come with the intention of being angry. I don't come with the intention of being confrontational. I come with facts. I come anticipating, and oftentimes I come understanding your rules, and I'm about to use them against you. That's the thing. If you're going to make a demand, you have to know what you're demanding. You have to know what are the rules that they have tied up those demands in to block you. And then
Mm.
you have to figure out the loophole in each and every one of them. And then you have to be ready to challenge them with their own rules.
Sure. Come
It's
bearing
not
facts.
come bearing facts. A lot of times we do the back of the envelope thing, and then someone asks you, well, if I give you capital for this, and what you're gonna do, and you start to hemming and oh no, when you walk into that room to make that demand, you better know what, how, where, who. You better be ready to tell it.
Sure. I have a very powerful woman who's just made a comment. She's actually our speaker from last week, the incredible Jacqueline Walker Johnson. She says, define yourself so others will not define you. That is a very powerful point that you just made. And, when it comes to defining yourself, I feel like we don't really know ourselves. How do we go into ourselves to understand ourselves first before we go out there and sell our brand?
Well, first of all, one of the things I find about people who are trying to develop brand is not being authentic. You will say, okay, you have this program and it's doing well. I should just create one also. But you don't know why. You don't know how. You're not ready. You're just going off of what someone else is doing. In the process of defining yourself, as I mentioned earlier, I had to go to find out, one, who I am and what was my higher purpose.
Yeah.
I didn't have time for a lot more trial or error. I did that. I tried a lot of things. I responded to a lot of what people say. And I give you an example. There was a time during my 14-year battle that everyone kept saying to me, you should be a lawyer. Or you just have to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Or you're so good, you just have to be a lawyer. And I absorbed that for a moment, and I started down the path of, applying to law school. It
Oh.
didn't, it wasn't something that I wanted. I felt like all the things that I had accomplished during that battle was a lot more than a lot of lawyers could have taken credit for. I wasn't a lawyer. I made an impact because when I went into the room, I was prepared factually. I was determined. I was consistent. And most importantly, I didn't have a price that anyone could pick me off with. I had offers of, I'll pay you this, I'll pay you that. There wasn't a price for me. I was focused on where I was going.
Sure.
So, in the whole process of all of that is you have to know who you are first. There's a peace that comes with knowing who you are.
So you're saying that the whole law pursuit was as a result of people saying to you, "Why don't you just become a lawyer? You're so great at it." But it's not really your passion, and
It was not my
we find ourselves quite a lot in situations like that where we're going with the hype. What happened in that situation? How did you stop yourself? Did you continue with the process of pursuing a law degree?
No, I didn't. I applied to law schools, and um, I I was still unstable, and I was still in the process unstable from the perspective that I couldn't bring myself to say law is what I wanted to do.
Okay.
But sometimes the successes that you're having and people reaffirming that this is what you should be because of the success, again, someone was typecasting me into a
Mm.
role that I really wasn't comfortable with.
Sure.
And I had to step back for a moment and say, okay, so I've done all this. In the process of this, I've taken on bankers, lawyers. I've had great success, fighting government bureaucracy. I'd had success in different places, and I'd seen a lot of success from what I was doing. And so then I started to ask myself, but okay, I've done this. Why do I need a law degree though? Again,
Yeah.
when I started this, I've been successful in doing it.
Hmm.
And why do I really need to go this route when it's giving me sleepless nights? Thinking
Mm.
about, is this what I want to do? Is this what I want to do? And it really wasn't what I wanted to do.
Wow.
I wanted to advocate, but not in a legal setting. I wanted to advocate to build up people, to motivate others, to develop people,
Sure,
not
sure. To
represent
fight, not
issues
to
or
fight.
fight or whatever. The situation where I feel like what I had gone through in that process, a lot of it required a lot of education.
Mm,
People who were there were a lot of immigrants involved, and people who had come from other places who did not understand the process they were undertaking, who was in that moment, sold false information, being conned, if you will. And I felt like I had more value educating, so that what I had learned in that process would never be repeated.
yes. Oh, I love that. You said something very important there. We're about to go for a break, but before we go, you mentioned that you were having sleepless nights. Is that the barometer you use to decide on whether you want to do something or not? Is that the piece that you assess?
That's one of it, because in my quietest moments, when the world is asleep, when everyone is down,
Mm.
if I have to lay there and wrestle with it, if it keeps me up at night,
Yeah.
it just may not be where I want to go.
Wow.
When I switched after that and applied to the program for a PhD, I
Mhm.
loved every minute of it. I love learning about leadership and taking everything I'd already known. Because in
Mm.
that process, in your undergrad, you're learning, you pretty much memorizing. In
Mm.
graduate, you start to make some sense of things at that point. When I got to the PhD program, now it was about nothing was black and white anymore. Everything
Yes.
was in shades of gray, and I could use it how I wanted to apply it.
Wow, that's incredible. We're going to go for a quick break. Thank you so much. I mean, you are such a powerhouse, Dr. Maxine D. Wilson. We will be back with Dr. Maxine D. Wilson just now, so don't go anywhere. And when we come back, we'll be talking about community, which is a very important part of the work that she does. So we're back again. This is the Boss Moves Media Show. Thank you so much for joining us. We still have the incredible Dr. Maxine D. Wilson. And for those who are joining on Instagram, the interface is not that great. Go to the website, bossmovesmedia.com, to get the full experience. And you can ask all of your questions there. We are taking your questions right now. So Dr. Maxine D. Wilson is an incredible person who continues to empower people all around the world. And one of the things that make you incredible is the fact that you have adopted a community servanthood, and it's just something that really encompasses everything that you do. And I know earlier on you mentioned that your dad was very community based. Tell us about your inspiration behind this community servanthood, and what is it, what does it entail?
Well, actually, it was my granddad. I grew up
Your
with him.
granddad.
Yes, first grandchild. I followed everywhere, went everywhere, and
Yeah.
our
Like
home.
where did your granddad take you?
Well, among prime ministers and politicians and
Wow.
schools and service, and it's funny thing, because I remember I couldn't have been more than probably about 9 or 10. I was in
Yeah.
I was in primary school, and they didn't have a library. And they used to say to us, there was a major library, and they used to say to us, we can't go there. We're not supposed to hang out there. That's where big children hang out. And I was so annoyed by the fact that I was being told I couldn't, but you didn't have a library. So I started a petition.
Oh, at what age?
It was probably about 10.
Yes, girl.
Yes. So what I learned from very early on, I watched my granddad in action, was the fact that he to create that table where people would sit. One, they would bring the community people would bring complaints, and then he would bring the people with the solutions there to work it out.
Okay.
And I don't recall him ever taking no for an answer. I always recall that he negotiated to the end. Now, one of the things I learned from him, he used to keep, really great big ledgers, big books.
Yeah.
And he captured longhand in those books everything everyone ever said.
Wow.
At the table. No recording.
Minutes.
And then he would use it against you later on when you try to say, well, I don't recall telling you I was going to do this or I was going to do that. He created opportunities in the community. He was about building community, and he was about training community the way it used to be, it's supposed to be. And he was a disciplinarian in the community for homes where there were no fathers. When children acted up, they would bring them to him for the discipline aspect of it, the talking to and that kind of stuff. But he was a worker, and he had his hand in a lot of things. He worked full time, but he would come home and he would drop an engine and put it back up before he go to sleep. And there were just certain things about the way he operated. And when he migrated here, he continued that. He came to a community, he saw a need, and he continued that. He worked, with the union. He was always advocating in healthcare. He sat on one healthcare board in Florida for about 27 years before he passed away. Those were lessons that so I had the culturation of, you're a girl, you can't do this, you're supposed to wear dresses, you're not supposed to climb trees. There were all the what you're not supposed to do. But then there was the other side of it where I saw an example. And I think the example came from the fact that, I don't know, how many people are aware of the fact that at the end of slavery in the Caribbean, Indians were brought in as indentured laborers. And basically they were supposed to bring them in, work the land, and then they were supposed to get their money and go back. My grandfather's parents were one of those families that came. And everything that happened with that, they worked, and education wasn't the big thing for them. And so he placed an emphasis on education. You didn't have to have any other job, do anything else. You just needed to go to school and focus.
Yeah.
And get good grades, work hard at it, because that's what was going to be your ticket. And so that's what was instilled in me at an early age. So I decided which parts of those culturation I wanted to take. Did I want to say, well, I'm sugar and spice and everything nice, and I can't raise my voice, and I have to take abuse, whether emotionally or physically, because I'm a girl and that's the way it is, and I'm supposed to be submissive? Or am I going to take the path of everything else that is good, that is expected, that is going to be a male that's going to do it? I'm going to be educated. I'm going to be smart about what I do. I'm going to plan. I'm going to calculate, and I'm going to become a change agent, because that's the part of what I knew that I liked. That's the part that gave me fulfillment.
I love that. And do you find that you carry this persona and the decision that you've made to be this decisive person at the expense of being called names in the corporate space? And now talking about breaking that glass ceiling. As a woman, are you able to actually break that glass ceiling without being called those names?
Well, you can call me whatever you want to call me, just don't call me unpaid.
Okay.
I
I love that.
developed an immunity to the name calling.
Okay.
And it came from the fact that I had now decided I know who I am. And I have already accepted the fact that lessons learned along the way that, when people can't, some people say when people can't beat you, they join you. Well, when people can't control you
Mm-hmm.
or dictate how your behavior, they will call you names. They will label you. You're difficult. You're trouble. That kind of stuff. And that's okay. It just means that I'm having an effect.
Yes.
Who I am is great. I've defined me, so I've not left any room for you to define me.
Yeah.
And I'm confident in who I am. I'm confident in whose I am. And so I
Mm.
take that with me, knowing,
Mhm.
and one of my favorite verses I always say, I can do all things through Christ who
Who
strengthens me.
strengthens
So
you?
I have,
Yes.
I've always believed that everything that happened in my life, I can take it to hinder me or to prevent me from moving forward, or I can take the lesson from it and move forward.
Wow.
And so I've often told myself that when I go through the tough times and when I go through the lessons and all of that, God is preparing me for the opportunity to do what it is that He has purposed me to do.
Mm, 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 mm.
So I don't look at, and one of the things I've learned to do over the years is to recognize what I call the same spirit, the same
Mhm,
behavior,
mhm.
that they come in it's different people, different looks, different gender, but it's the same behavior. So I just push it as I'm moving forward. It's like a train. I'm pulling out the station. You can either get on or you can get run over. But I'm
Yeah.
going.
Bye, Felicia. Bye.
But I'm going. That's just the way it is.
We say the exact same thing on radio. If people are not feeling something, then you don't have an effect on them. So we do want complaints, okay, because that means you've affected people, you've moved them one way or the other. And we talk about career development for women, especially women of color, all around the world. And seemingly, I mean, we are getting somewhere with it, but still, where decision making is concerned, policy making is concerned, all of the important things that actually change industries are still things and positions that we are not getting onto. How do we actually get over that and really move into these decision making positions?
Well, if you remember earlier, I talk about the brand, and people may
Mm,
not like brands, but you have to develop yourself as your own brand. What are
mm,
you about? Who are you going to be? And in order for you to do that, you have to have a goal. So, where in the organization do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? And how are you going to get there? There's a lot of times we make demands and we say, I want to be the CEO of this company.
mhm.
But then when we get in front of a decision maker or we get in front of someone who can make it happen, because we didn't develop us as a brand or we didn't develop ourselves, we falter to say what exactly it is that we need. We say, and someone will say, well, if I give you this position, what's going to happen? We didn't think that far.
Yeah.
No, we can do it. We're capable of it, but we're not able to sell ourselves as the brand that we ought to be. And that's
Mhm.
the first big thing in marketing. You have to learn to market yourself and you have to learn to be prepared. One of the things that I've always done, you can call me every name in the book. You can say I'm loud. You can say I'm confrontational. You can say whatever. But the work that I produce is good. It delivers. It creates success. And I
Mhm.
can turn around and say, just like most other guys would pat themselves on the back, and I can say, well, I did this and I accomplished this. And this is the value of what I brought to this. And that makes a difference. And it might sound like bragging, but if you can't brag on yourself, who's going to brag on you?
Of course.
You have to
Nobody.
learn how to be your
Mhm.
own cheerleader.
Yep.
It is what's going to get you to the next phase. The other thing is we have a tendency to say, well, I'm coming, I'm bringing everybody with me. No, one step at a time. It's good to want to
Mhm.
think about everybody and you have a plan, and it's good to come back for somebody. But if you're not there and the door is not open for you, you can't help anybody.
That's right. That's
You
right.
have to be able to keep your foot in that door open so that others can come through that door with you. We have to
Wow.
learn how to reach back. We have to learn. And here's the thing that we always have to consider: where you are going, it may not be for those people you're trying to bring with you. That's your journey. That's your purpose.
Hmm.
That is why people have to define who define themselves. That is why people have to know who their what their brand is,
Yep.
because every part of your journey, some parts of it are going to be you by yourself.
Self awareness, very important. We still have Dr. Maxine D. Wilson. She is so incredible. I really hope you are enjoying this as much as we are. It is a multicast, so we're on all social media platforms right now at Nonala Dose and also on bossmovesmedia.com. So when we come back, we'll be talking to Dr. Maxine D. Wilson about learning and the future of education, where we're headed, and what it will mean in the future to have and develop certain skills. So don't go anywhere. This is the Boss Moves Media Show. Welcome back to it. This is the Boss Moves Media Show, episode 5. We are live right now at Nonala Dose, a multicast on all social media platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. We're also live for the full experience on bossmovesmedia.com, taking all of your questions as well. And we have the amazing Dr. Maxine D. Wilson on the line right now. We're sitting down with her talking about all things self development and empowerment. And the most important of these to develop yourself is to continue to upgrade your skills, your level of thinking and your mindset. And it actually begs the question: what is, in your eyes, the future of education?
So the irony of all of it is that, there was a time when people would say about, online learning, it had such a stigma attached to it. Uh,
Yes.
some people just never thought it had value. Everyone had this whole brick and mortar
Yep.
idea. And then I think brick and mortar institutions start to realize that while they needed to function the way they function, there was a change where people are not looking to sit in a classroom. Adults who are learning and retraining don't have the time to have a fixed schedule, and they started to offer online learning as well.
Hmm.
And then the pandemic came, and now everybody, suddenly the solution was going to online learning.
Yep.
And we see a lot of difficulty in it because of the fact that what I think a lot of people are realizing, that when you're an online learner, it requires a whole lot more self-discipline and focus and
Mm.
a kind of that personal interaction you don't have. So you have it's an online experience and all of that, and it's becoming difficult for people to move to it. But I think after the pandemic, a lot of things that we did in person is going to stay, monitored and controlled by technology. I was having a
Yeah.
conversation with someone yesterday who told me that their monthly travel budget was $12,000.
Wow.
And since the pandemic, it's about $30.
Because
And
nobody's traveling.
there's nobody to travel, but they're still getting things done because Zoom and all the other platforms are making it a whole lot easier for people to do it. Now, this is something people never thought about
Yeah.
doing before. And I tell you, it's funny because for a long time I had asked about working from home. And they kept telling me, oh, you got to be in the office. You know, all the people you work for are here and they need to have you here. And since March, I've been working from home and it's been seamless. In fact, I've gotten more work done, gotten a
Nice.
lot done. And so I think that the future of learning is moving in that direction where it's going to be driven by technology. And
Yeah, but
if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
not technologically savvy, you're going to be, or you don't get up to speed quickly or learn how to navigate, you're going to be left behind. The other part of it is that we have to look at how we are developing people.
Yes.
And that one size fit all doesn't work. We have to assess people's strengths. We have to be specific and labor focus in who are we developing and for what position specifically are we developing these people. It's to make no sense. A lot of times you go to training, it's the same useless training, and it makes absolutely no sense for the person who's doing it. And you come up going, I already know that. I know how to do that. We have to open up avenues for people through training and through coaching. We have to learn how to coach.
Yes.
Mindsets are changing.
Absolutely.
We have to learn how people work by generation. Each generation work different. And we have to not just focus on what the consumer want, but we have to focus on what the workforce that we are putting out there for the consumer, where they are in meeting the
Yes.
consumer needs. So we have to train digital leaders. Digital leaders require a new mindset. You know, a leader's mission in an organization or even personal life is one of empowerment. So we have to look at coaching and training from the perspective of empowerment and empower people to succeed. We have to create that pipeline, that succession. And in order for us to do that, we have to have people ready to take over.
Yeah.
This, this pandemic taught us that one day you was in the office and next day you was out, and now you had to figure it out on your own because we caught without a real plan if this should happen.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody planned for a pandemic, but nobody planned for an accident either, but we buy insurance.
Yes. True that. And I mean, it's easier for someone like you know, Doc, to say, you know, I'm going to work from home, I'm going to take up a skill, I'm going to study because I'm self-motivated. What about the person who's not self-motivated? What about the person who actually requires, you know, to sit in a desk and to be helped and assisted by a teacher or one-on-one experience? How do they navigate through this new world?
And that's where community come in. That's
Yeah.
part of what I do to help people to transition. We can't just accept that this is not my way of operating. We have to operate from the perspective of I have to help you transition to the way of operating.
Mm,
It's
mm.
what happened when you don't update your skills or you don't shift your focus or you are not adaptable to change, you're left behind.
Adapt,
We don't
adapt,
want that to
adapt.
happen.
Yeah.
Adapt, adapt, adapt. And some of that adaptation, and some of it is born out of fear. It's
Mhm.
taking us out of our comfort zone. It's pushing us in a direction where, you know, we have to do some things different. We have to think different, and it's also about control. We know what we're good at, but we're unsure of the unknown. We're not sure where we're going to go, so we don't have that confidence that that we have the competence to be able to move into that next phase. And it's where support is key and important, and a transitional situation is created so that people can transition from what they're comfortable and focused with to what seem uncomfortable, but you have to help them. It takes a little bit of hand holding, it takes a little bit of nudge,
Yes.
it takes a little bit of, you know, sometimes we fear all the changes that are coming because, you know, let's say technology, everything is being technology, and we fear all the changes that are coming, but we fear what we haven't tried yet.
Mm.
And that's the whole thing about, change. There is a paralysis that comes for some people with change because of the fact that we fear the unknown.
Yep.
We fear whether or not we're going to be able to navigate and be as comfortable as we are with the known.
But
So
like, yeah,
we can't
like
leave
you
people
just,
behind. We have to help
mm,
them transition to
yes.
the next phase.
I love that. There's nothing in the world that is my thing or not my thing. You just have to adapt. And I love what you said there. You need to have the confidence that you have the competence. And speaking of which, how do we then position women? And this is our last 3 minutes of the show. How do we position women in a economic growth platform? So how do we help women forge economic growth in the little corners that they're in? And I mean, I'm talking now even about the rural woman who does not have access to digital learning and skills development.
One of the things I've come to be really cognizant of, especially in this pandemic, is the fact that women create businesses and they create out of means of what they know, but they don't
Mm.
have funding to be able to do that.
Yes.
And so they lag behind in a lot of directions they want to go. Some of them never had the opportunity. If you're an older one in the family, you probably had to become a caregiver early so parents could work. Some people just are not given the opportunity. For example, in the United States alone, Black people make up 13% of the population, and less than 2% have their own small business. And it's even worse for women
Mm.
because we don't. And so this is why I told you earlier, I consult with women owned, minority owned businesses to help them thrive and grow, to help them have opportunities, almost like an incubator, to be able to say, let me help you, let me show you, let me put you in touch with someone who can help you. And worldwide is the same thing. It's a lack of resources. It's a lack of
Mm.
sometimes education. It's a lack of the capital required to do what you want to do. And then if you're able to do that somewhere, it's a lack of support to be able to sustain that. And a lot of times, because we create things out of necessity, we don't look at the sustainability going forward, because we can move today, but we really, if I have a business, I can probably make enough to restock, but I can't make enough to expand.
Yes.
And that is what cripple women. And we have to create more than just, I'm going to tell you how it's done, but we have to create opportunities to put people with other people who can support them, who can mentor them, to get women, especially in a place where it's not just about technology, but you're going to do what you need to do where you're at. There's a lot of women who have very good skills that they can utilize, turn it into a business or help somebody else, but they don't have the know-how.
Yes.
They need help with that. And then there are a lot of them who have the know-how and all, but they don't have the capital. There need to be help with the capital to do that. And then there are a lot of them who can get it started, but they don't have the technical skills to keep it sustainable. There need to be help with that. And these are opportunities that other women can create to help women. It can be
Mm.
women helping women.
So let's do it together, ladies. Let us do it together. You are so incredible. Dr. Maxine D. Wilson, I cannot wait to have you in South Africa when we have all of our speakers under one roof and we're just really feeding off each other and off each other's energy and knowledge. You are going to love this place and we're going to love having you.
And I'm ready whenever you're ready for me.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate the gems that you've shared with us. You're such an incredible woman. Please continue to empower and inspire people in your walk of life. Where can we get a hold of you if we want to get in touch with you and get in touch with your services?
You can reach me at drmaxinewilson@gmail.com. And you can also reach me at Dr. Maxine at Wilson's Way to Winning. In fact, that's my consulting practice. It's Wilson's Way for Winning.
Perfect. There you have it. Please make sure that you get a hold of this incredible powerhouse. You will change your life. It's been an absolute pleasure. Season episode 5 of the Boss Moves Media Show. And next week, Friday, is going to be our season finale. And then we go on hiatus back with you again in 2021. We absolutely cannot wait to really have all of these speakers under one roof. And it's going to happen hopefully soon. So this pandemic must pass and go. And, if there's a vaccine that's coming, sort that out and let's get things done. It's been great. Thank you and have yourself a wonderful weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.